Hey folks.
Hi, great to see you all. Great to see my friend here,
Ramon.
and Bob.
Hey.
How are we doing? So,
Well, it's Leopard Day today.
yeah, there is a reason for that, isn't
There
there?
is. But are we going to tell our
Maybe
trusty
not yet.
viewers?
Maybe not yet.
Maybe not yet.
Maybe
but
not
maybe
yet.
later. Okay.
Yeah.
There is a reason. There's method in our madness. But
So-
today's programme.
Today's program, Bob, is all about two really good guitars, actually.
Yeah.
Now, one of these guitars is worth a lot of money, maybe 200, maybe 250,000 quid, and one of them is worth 250 pounds or 200 pounds.
Yep.
And we're going to ask you guys, which one do you think it is?
I don't think there's a big prize for this.
And we're also going to demo these through some simple amps. Today we've got a deluxe reverb amplifier. And Bob, do you want to tell us about your new creation?
Oh, yeah.
Hooked up with it.
Well, again, loyal viewers will know about this already because I've done a little video on it. But basically, I can't quite reach it and get it on shot. I'll do a close-up of it. I built myself an attenuator because I really love this deluxe reverb amp. The reason I use it in all the demos is because it's the kind of amp that anybody out there could easily play.
Yeah.
Nothing fancy about it, nothing exotic, nothing punitively expensive. It's a normal amp. It's a great sounding amp. This is a reissue. It's not like a 1960s vintage.
No.
So it's a ordinary amp. I love it. I play it a lot.
It sounds
But
sweet.
It's a really
Very
sweet amp.
sound.
It likes the Gibsons, it likes the Fenders, it's a great amp, but it's 22 watts, and to get that bitey sound, it does get a bit loud.
Right.
So I built this attenuator. I thought I'm no good at that kind of stuff with soldering iron and stuff. So I just thought, well, the attenuator is such a simple circuit
And big components. Yeah.
and big components. You know, for big fingers,
Yeah.
big clumsy things. So anyway, I thought if I can build this, it might be a sort of way in. So I built this attenuator from a few parts. It cost me about, well, if I hadn't messed up a few of the parts, it would have cost me about 55 quid to make. So it wasn't cheap, but it wasn't really expensive. And I plugged it in for the first time. It sounds great. So now I have this attenuator on my Deluxe all the time. And what it means is that I can have the input volume on the Deluxe up at about 6, 5.5, 6,
Sort
or
of
even
B.B.
7.
King sort of volume.
Yeah, and so the guitar's driving the front end of the amp. The back end of the amp is working hard, but most of the power is being soaked into the attenuator and not getting to the speaker. So the speaker isn't doing much work, but the rest of the amp thinks it's working at stage volume.
Yeah.
And the difference in tone between having the guitar on full and the amp down on 1,
Yeah.
which would be a typical practice regime,
Yeah.
and this, riding the volume control but having the amp flat out, the difference in tone at the same volume level is fantastic.
Do you want to demonstrate some
So
raunchy?
This is a.
Can you hear the sustain kicking in?
There's a sustain, a little bit of spring, a little bit of
Yeah.
bite.
Yeah.
It just sounds completely different. And the volume that I'm playing at there is. Oh, well, I'll tell you what. I'll talk over it. You can hear. I'm talking over it now. So I'm talking over it slightly competitive, but it's not really loud. I wouldn't piss my family off too much if I was playing at that volume, Whereas, if I turn the attenuator off, okay, this is it. It's bloody deafening, yeah? So it's really,
That's right, guys.
it's really good. Anyway, so that's the amp. Now, Ramon is playing through my Ignator, I've got to get this right, it's a Renegade 30, so it's a 30 watt combo. I bought it years ago after seeing a demo at Abbey Road Studios. I think Neville Martin was playing one.
He's a good lad, isn't he?
He's all right, top chap. He's playing Les Paul.
Anyone know he does the Guitarist magazine or Guitar Techniques?
And he's a real Les Paul, expert. And he's
been around for donkey's
been
years.
around for a long time.
He's a great guy.
He knows his stuff, and he's also he's a tech. He's a repairer.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And he did a lot of Gary Moore interviews.
That's it.
Classic, great.
So
what a guy.
He was playing, and he was demoing one of these amps, and I left that evening thinking that was a really sweet sounding little amp. And years ago, I didn't.
You don't have to spend a lot of money, do you, to get a good tone nowadays?
Well, I mean, having said that, I'm being Mr. Posh. I'm banding around money that people might not have. But this deluxe reverb cost me second hand from a mate. Cost me 400 quid. That was probably a bargain, but you probably picked them up for $5.
You're a thrifty kind of guy then, yeah?
Sometimes. Well, sometimes. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But that amp didn't cost a lot of money. The Ignator probably cost brand new from Guitar in Epsom all those years ago. Probably cost less than £700.
I mean, this is
the reason we're using these amps rather than all the boutiquey stuff is just to take away any possible advantage.
Yeah.
Level the playing field.
Yeah, and these two amps, I mean, the Ignator's pretty sweet. This is a sweet sort of amp. So what this video really is about demonstrating a hugely expensive, one of the icons of the last century in this guitar. This has become so. This is 1958 real sunburst Les Paul, what we call a burst. And this is versus a Tokai copy. Now, do you want to do? We all know about this guitar, don't we? It's been featured a lot. But let's just hear a little bit about this guitar. Now, this cost you £200. And my question to you is, why do you like it, Bob? What's so good about this guitar?
So I was because a friend of mine is a big Firebird user. I got exposed very late in my life to Firebird.
Shall we say who that is?
We'll say who it is. Alan Darby.
He's great player, man.
Fabulous player. And one of his signature dishes, if you like, is playing a Firebird. And he really does squeeze tone out of a Firebird. It's fantastic. So I got really into Firebirds as a result of being, in proximity to him. I then bought my Gibson Firebird off him.
Which is a custom shop, isn't it?
Which is a custom shop thing. And it was a pricey guitar. Huge neck on it. I mean, it's not very accurate 64.
Right.
Not very accurate, but it's a wonderful guitar. I played that for a bit. And then I was mucking around in a band with my friend Rupert Webster, who sadly is no longer with us. He passed quite recently. But he had this thing. He used to buy and sell guitars all the time.
So he owned that guitar?
And he owned this guitar. Right. And one day, I don't know, I think he wanted to buy an amp or something. He wanted to liquidate a bit of money. So he sold a few things quick. And he said, do you want to buy this guitar? And I said, I love that guitar.
Yeah.
By then I'd played it. And, he said, well, it cost me 200 quid. I'll give it to you for the same.
Yeah.
I thought, well, 200 quid.
I mean, this is made in China, right?
It's Chinese.
Chinese. Yeah.
It says here, made in China. It's a Tokai FB40, that's the model number, and it's basically a Firebird 1, so it's a single pickup, tone and volume, wraparound bridge.
The kind of cream, classic Eric Clapton guitar.
But with a few differences. First of all, it's not a neck through with side wings, although it looks like it.
So it's glued in.
It's glued in.
For 200 quid, glued in neck's not bad, is it?
No, absolutely, it's glued in. But the other charming thing is that the body isn't made of a single or even two pieces of wood. It's actually made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 planks which have been squashed together and glued together. But it's so cheaply made that obviously they ran out of wood or something because the planks, the joins in the planks,
they're not straight.
They're not aligned with the guitar. They're all off. They're all squiffy, and you can see it through the front. It's a really peculiar looking guitar. Then it's got a wraparound, not special, aftermarket, wraparound thing. It's got.
Oh, so he changed that?
No, sorry. It's just this is a cheap wraparound. It's not a reputable one.
It's a Tokai though. It's original.
It's a Tokai one. Yeah. But it's got the intonational adjustment.
The colour's strange because it's not like the classic tobacco burst.
This is a cherry sunburst rather than the tobacco,
which they never did.
The back is really red. The back of the neck, and all the rest of it. The other thing is that the headstock on a reverse Firebird should have a kind of a rail along the side, and it should have the through banjo tuners, whereas this is the second kind of Firebird, which is just kind of Clusons, tulip head Clusons, right angle, regular tuners. That for the Firebird fans, there was a brief transition between reverse Firebirds, that's what this is, and non-reverse Firebirds, which look a bit more ordinary, and which as a collector I don't really like very much. And by the way, they're glued on.
Yeah.
But there's a transition bit where some of these original reverse Firebirds had the headstock went both ways, sometimes that way, sometimes that way, but it was flat like this with right angle tuners. And I think there's about 10 or 15 transition guitars. They're very rare.
Yeah.
And then gradually what happened is that the headstock changed first, and then the pickups changed from Firebird pickups, which are like kind of mini humbuckers, but the insides are a bit different, and they changed to P90s. And so there was a transition that went into those Firebirds. But this guitar, 200 quid, the only thing is, I had Matt Gleason at Monty's take the guts out of the pickup and wind me, or stuff for me, one of his P90s into this casing. So this is a funny guitar. This is, because a real Firebird pickup is much sharper.
Yeah, it is.
This is quite smooth. So this is a P90 in this housing.
Yeah.
So this is a bit like, there's two bits on this Firebird that are like a non-reverse Firebird.
Yeah.
But you know, it's a cheap Chinese guitar, but it plays beautifully.
So let's hear it in action then. Let me play some. Should we play some jazz, Bob?
Oh, some refined music.
Let's play some jazz, okay? What about let's play some Latin jazz?
Oh.
Guys, that's the first time you've seen Bob playing jazz. You know?
Okay, probably the last. Probably the last. And that was only on about volume 2 or 3 on the guitar, so you know, just playing clean. But you know, it's I love this guitar. I've taken it out to jams, I've taken it out to gigs.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
And the thing about it is, if something did happen and the headstock broke off, you wouldn't be too upset.
You wouldn't be too gutted.
Are you attached to that guitar?
Well, I am, because I like it. By the way, talking of attached, the other thing I didn't mention is that, like a lot of modern cheap guitars, this has got a
scarf joint.
A scarf joint on the headstock.
I don't know that word.
There you go, scarf joint. So to economise on wood. So I mean, it's altogether just a cheap guitar, but it's wonderful, and I'm attached to it because it's just good. But this is worth, plus or minus, and I don't want to get into too much of an argument of exact values, but plus or minus, you can get 1,000 of these for one of those.
1,000. So that's worth £200, right?
So I mean, or 750 of these. I mean, you could put these in this room, and you could drown in guitars, drown in these.
Right.
I don't think they ever made 100. So
let's,
you're fine.
Let's swap some licks. So I'll come on the back pickup because that's what you've got, yeah.
Okay.
We'll swap some. Guys, pick a chord for us, guys. Tell us a chord. What? C minor? Yeah. We do C minor, yeah. Okay. So I'll go. So guys, imagine you could, you know, obviously I should have said this before we start playing, but it's almost like, you know, close your eyes and could you spot the two guitars? You know, is there such a difference? Well, there is obviously a difference because that's a P90 and this is a straight humbucker, but is there a £250,000 difference?
This is a step change. Truly, I mean, you're on such thin ice if you think there is, aren't you? You know,
absolutely.
They are different. This one, I just listening to those two while we were playing it. This one sounded a little bit thinner, but that's also something about the way you hit the strings with your plectrum, and I'm using my fingers. A bit of that, you know. But the fact is,
like Bob said, that a lot of the nuance when you're playing, you're touching that string. John Mayer, by the way. I was playing that lick way before John Mayer.
Oh, that's
I
your
want to put it
story.
out there. I was doing that way before John Mayer even became famous. So, okay.
But I would say that does sound. That sounds richer. It sounds warmer. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It sounds well. It really. If it didn't sound fantastic, there'd be a real problem, wouldn't there? Whereas if this didn't sound fantastic, it would be like.
Yeah. It's a bonus.
Yeah,
Well, no, it's not a bonus. But
Easy
it's-
come, easy go. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, the thing about this one, because I'm playing this guitar, guys, and what I'm, this is not my guitar. This is Bob. Bob's played this guitar for over 20 years, and I played it for 20 minutes. But what you're hearing when you play this is you're hearing those classic guitar tones that you heard on Peter Green
Yeah.
and Eric Clapton and Mick Taylor. You're hearing those. The thing about this guitar here is if you sound rubbish or shit on this guitar, then it's your fault. You've got no excuses.
Yeah,
But
you're
it's
right.
this one.
The one thing I will say is, when I bought that guitar, well, obviously it was a really big moment in my life. It was also a lot of money and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
I was very interested, as I owned it. Obviously, it was fantastic to have achieved a lifelong ambition.
Yeah.
I was really interested to see if anybody else noticed and gave a damn, apart from my guitar playing friends. And what's really interesting is that's the only guitar that when I'm out playing to people who are kind of friends, or friends of friends who come along to a gig.
And not in the guitar world.
Not in the guitar
not living
world.
in Planet Plectrum.
And they might think it's a pretty yellow and brown colour,
Yeah.
but they don't know that it's all
Yeah.
kneel down,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it usually, somebody who doesn't know about guitars will say, that sounds really nice. In a way that they don't when I play a Telly or a Strat or a Firebird.
Yeah.
It's something about, it's got a certain
It does. Yeah.
warmth.
For example, if I'm playing. That's not my fault. Don't blame me. No, it is my fault. Right, okay, so what I'm trying to tell you there is, listen to early Fleetwood Mac. One thing they used to do was strum the Les Pauls. And
Yeah, they do.
and it's just got that incredible acoustic quality, which this guitar has.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't often get that from a guitar. So this has got a really, and that's what I like to do with a burst, is just strum chords, and it's so chiming and because of the paths and the resonance of the wood, and that's really the test of a great Les Paul.
But also, when you play one of these old ones, what I'm looking for, and obviously I've lived with this one for a long time, I've got to know what I'm looking for when I play another one.
Yeah.
And the first thing that surprised me about this guitar is how bright it is unplugged.
No, that's just my shirt.
Boom! It's really bright unplugged, right?
Okay, so let's,
whereas a modern Les Paul, and actually it's just
there's a lot of sizzle, isn't there?
quite a lot of bright. I mean, and actually this guitar unplugged is it doesn't sound bad for a cheap guitar. It rings well,
no.
but the strings do. There's a little bit of sort of slight rubberiness and a little bit of deadness coming out.
Yeah.
And modern Les Pauls, and I'm not going to get hung for this, but they
Speak the truth.
They
Speak the truth.
to
Come
me, I know I'm in a position of great privilege, but
Yeah.
they feel dead to me.
They feel dead to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's what I've got to say about that, Bob. I think coming back, it's almost like what would be a better review, because the thing about this guitar, this has got some magic to it. There's definitely no doubt about it, some magic. Now, whether that magic is worth an extra 200 grand,
Yeah.
we don't. The jury's out on that one. Well, the jury's. Most people would think it's frigging ridiculous.
Yeah.
The reason these are worth so much money is because when people have so much money that they don't know what to do, and they start collecting things. This is art,
that's right.
trinkets. This is where this is this is not. If musicians were only allowed, if you had to kind of pass a grade system to be able to buy one of these, then they would be probably worth 10 grand, because most of the people that own these, except you obviously and a few others, can't actually play.
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
Well, I think there's a lot of these guitars. I mean, for a start, there's a lot of these guitars in the hands of very few people. So there's a lot of these guitars that are in very few hands. There are a few collectors who've got quite a lot of them, and those guys, very little is said about.
There's like a billionaire, isn't there?
There's a billionaire guy who's got the biggest collection of all.
And how many does he own?
It was certainly in 3 figures.
100, 200?
Maybe even more. I mean, it's a lot.
So there's a billionaire guy, guys. I only knew this last week. There's some billionaire around the world, and he owns possibly 300 of these old guitars.
So and not much is known about him except that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he's obviously got some money. That goes without saying.
Yeah.
But very little about his playing. I mean, he could be an incredible player.
He might be amazing.
Steven Seagal, the actor.
I love Steven Seagal.
Pretty good player.
Yeah,
he
he's
has those.
Yeah.
Bonomassa's got 3 or 4 at any
did
time.
Steven sell his first?
I don't know. But
I really like Steven Seagal. I grew up in the 80s.
there's a whole load of these guitars in the hands of people, and you just don't know if they're good players or not. I'm not saying they're all twats and bad players. You just don't know.
But it's not really that. It's more the fact that there's a double-edged thing here. On number one, you've got success. You've worked your ass off to get your company, whatever, a success, and you're reaping the rewards by buying this rock and roll trinket. Yeah. On the other side of it is, musicians who can't afford it but deserve it.
Yeah, well.
And could make great music. Like somebody like, for example, I'm not saying he can't afford it, but somebody like Kurt Fletcher, somebody like him should have one of these.
Totally.
So
the only thing I can do, and obviously, I'll do it sparingly because otherwise I'd be foolish, but I do it sparingly, is that there are friends of mine who, if they are recording things and they want to play a guitar like this, then I'll let them. Okay? It helps me. It gives the guitar some provenance. It gives it a story. Okay, and it also helps players like that to kind of.
But not everyone's a good guy like you.
No, that's true. And the other thing is that a lot of guys, they don't want to make a record on a strange guitar. They want to make a record on the guitar that they're familiar with.
And then there's insurance, and there's you might drop it. I mean, I'm freaking clumsy. I am never lend me this guitar because I am super clumsy. Don't lend me anything. Give it to me, but don't lend it to me.
Well, I mean, but I mean, certainly, as you know from ever since I've known you, I mean, I'm really comfortable about friends of mine who are fairly good guitar players coming over playing my guitars. Yeah. I mean, and the benefit is I get to see the guitars played by some really fantastic musicians. I also get, sitting adjacent, I get a free lesson every time. What's not to like?
It's a great thing. So coming back to the purpose of this video, I think we can say. What I wanted to say before we kind of went off in the tangent there was maybe a better thing would have been to demo this against, say, a master-built Gibson, because this has got some magic to it.
Yeah, maybe.
Because
maybe. I mean, for example, if I put this against my custom shop Firebird.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. I mean, they're quite different guitars, but this guitar still holds up.
Right.
It's just a good cheap guitar.
So what we're saying, guys, if you take an analogy, for example, Formula One, you had Ayrton Senna, who was in Ferrari at the time, wasn't he? And then he left them and went to, I don't know if he went directly, but he ended up with Williams, didn't he? The car where he killed himself. But here you've got, but he was still leading the race. So he was, he was beating Schumacher, was behind him with the Benetton, wasn't he? But at that time, Ayrton Senna was such a good driver.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter so much that the Williams car was not as good as the other cars.
Yeah.
It had some problems, because they banned power steering or some computerized stuff.
Yeah.
So then the Williams had the edge on the other cars because they had the computer system. But when Formula One banned it, the actual car wasn't technically as good as the other cars.
Yeah.
But his driving skills were so good that he overcame that.
Yeah.
So if we take that to guitars. Do you think that this guitar here, this 200 grand guitar, is more important than your skills as a guitarist if you're playing these two?
It doesn't come close. It doesn't come close. If you're a good guitarist, you can get the sound out of a tin box, right? If you're a lousy guitarist, even something like that will not make you much better. It might make you sound a little bit better
Right.
if you're lucky. But then you get me onto my whole other riff, which is something it took me my whole life to discover, which isn't even about the guitars, it's about the amps. The amp to me, I learnt this so late. I spent all my life chasing lovely guitars.
Yeah.
And only got into proper amps in the last 5, 6, 7 years. It's all about the amp. If you said at gunpoint, I'm going to put you in a corner and you've got a limited budget, you've got to have, I don't know, you've got, let's say, £3,000 to spend on an amp and a guitar, I'd spend most of it on the amp.
And that is the thing. So
Every
this is,
time.
and we've said this before on the Bob and Ron show. We've said, look, you know, a £200,000 guitar into a Gorilla amp versus that thing there into, you know, your Dumble clone. What's going to sound better?
Absolutely.
What's
every
going
time.
to sound?
Every time.
So the Tokai's going to sound better.
Absolutely, every time. Every time. Of course, if you then put that, you then over-egg the cake and you have a fabulous guitar, wonderful cable, great amp, lovely mics, all the rest of it. Now you're off into heaven.
So let's maybe we can put a mathematical equation on this. This guitar and this guitar, what percentage has that guitar got on this? Or rather, the other, how much better is this guitar than that, percentage-wise?
I mean, it's impossible because it's legendary and it's iconic and all that stuff.
Forget that. Forget all of that stuff.
But honestly,
we're just listening to the sound.
But if you said you've got to go out and do one of your gigs with your band tonight, I could pick up either of these guitars and be absolutely happy.
And the band aren't sort of, what's happened tonight, Bob? Why is your sound not? They're not going to say that.
No, it's as awful as usual. Absolutely. But seriously, no. And in fact, truth be told, the way life is, I'd actually be much more comfortable taking this guitar out, or that Eric Johnson Stratocaster over there, rather than having to worry about keeping my eye and my hand on this damn thing all night without fail.
Well, it's like a briefcase of 200 grand, isn't it?
You basically handcuff it to your wrist, you know, and then some bugger's going to come along with bolt cutters. You know, it's fantastic, but it's a liability.
Yeah.
You know, so in many ways, clear winner. But seriously, you know, it's a fantastic guitar. I'm so glad I own it. I love to play it all the time. But I also play. I don't play that all the time. I play this. I play my Les Paul Junior.
Because
a modern Telecaster. You know,
you know, a Les Paul for me. A Les Paul is just to finish this video off, guys. For me, a Les Paul is a can of worms. You know, obviously, if you've got the real thing like this it's generally a given that it's going to sound sweet. Not all the time, but generally, because they're old, wood's dried out, blah blah blah.
I've only played one of the vintage ones I've played. I've only played one dog.
Well, do you remember we had the guy around who had, we won't say who, but we had a 960 Les Paul, we thought it was, and that sounded very sweet, didn't it? Sounded fantastic.
Yeah, that's right. And also another guy we know he's had a few Les Pauls, and at the moment I would say that Sunburst that he's got, not one of my favourites. It's not really awful. I have played one that was like playing a piece of rubber. It was horrible. Right, but it hadn't been looked after well. But mostly, you know, I mean,
they sound on average. They sound
good. The one that we did the video on a couple of years ago now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a nice guitar. Early 60, 59 neck, lots of flame on it. Yeah. Wonderful guitar.
Very special.
You know, real
cool guy, cool owner. The guy who owns it.
Cool guy.
So let's just finish off with a jam here, guys. Let's hear your comments, because what's really great is, you know, what is your take on these expensive guitars? Do you think it's got stupid? Are they worth it? You know, what is your take on it? And do you know, because a lot of our people that watch us, Bob, they have cheap guitars. You know, they have £100 guitar, 200. They don't have expensive guitars.
Yeah.
And so it's good. It's a good video to say, look, you know, this is Bob here. He owns cool shirts and he plays cheap guitars. It's not all about the 200 grand guitar.
No.
You know.
No. It's. So, I mean, you're in sort of realms of wealthy people, wealthy collectors, and a lot of excuses. You know, the truth is that some of the greatest guitar players in the world. Yeah. Well, they can all get a great sound out of cheap guitars. Some of them play cheap guitars. Yeah. You know, and it just makes no difference.
Yeah. So let's end on that jam that we started on. Bit of Dire Straits. with us, and it's goodbye from
From Ramon, and goodbye from
me. Bob.
Thanks for watching.
Take care. Bye.
See ya.